This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome to the latest and freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, yours truly, Vito Chirco. Vito Jerome Chirco, that is, alongside my sidekick, my partner in crime, and the podfather himself, John the Doc Macaroon. John, what's going on today?
And I am a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that.
What an intro, Vito. Thank you for dialing that up. I am a certified G, and you know that. And I'm looking forward to the first official baseball podcast of the 2016 regular season. 5 games in, a little bit disappointing the last couple games. I'm interested and fascinated to get your take. And this week, we've jammed the podcast full of nice guests. Tell the people who is going to be on this edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company.
2 guests. Bill Dugan is the first one from Roseville, Michigan. Caught 5 foul balls yesterday. Okay, that was a matinee game. Nobody was there. He was lucky enough to grab all those balls. But he's done it before that, grabbing 4 balls in a game before, I believe, back in 2002. So he's done it more than once now in his career as a fan watching the Tigers at Comerica Park. So he's a big story right now. Actually gained more fame than JV did. And he was a highlight of the game because JV was miserable yesterday against the Pirates. So in his second start of the season. And then after him, we also have Aaron McMann. Not to be confused with Brian McCann or James McCann of the Tigers, both catchers in their own rights. Brian for the Yankees, but it is Aaron McMann that is joining us today from Mlive to discuss the first week of the season, obviously, to get his takes on all of that, plus on, JV's disappointing second start of the season, and then to maybe even look at the Pistons and their playoff outlook because he covers the Pistons and the Tigers for MLive.com. So those are the 2 guests today joining us on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company.
Now, Vito, first, let's talk about the positives. The record as we stand now, 3 wins, 2 losses. The first 3 games were outstanding. The bats were on fire. Victor Martinez has that pop. The starters were very excellent. Justin Verlander in Miami, Jordan Zimmermann on opening day. Lots of hits, lots of runs, and they were able to overcome that shaky first appearance by K-Rod. And it was just, I thought, the first 3 games going 3-0 were very efficient, very successful, and it made opening day a really fun environment because Jordan Zimmermann just came out there, and you could see why he earned that big contract, was workmanlike, made the game. There's very rare situations where a pitcher can make the game look so easy. He was just workmanlike, was getting the guys out. The Tigers' bats were alive. They won the game versus the Yankees. But the last couple games are kind of indicative of what we're all worried about in terms of, JV, some issues, injuries. So I know everyone says, hey, calm down, 157 games left. But there's a lot to dig into just in the first week.
Yeah, there is. I mean, looking at Jordan Zimmermann, a sharp, quality start in his first outing with the Tigers on opening day here at Comerica Park. That was a quality start and great to see out of their offseason acquisition for the rotation and for the top of the rotation because, Mike Pelfrey, remember what happened to him the day after that. After starting 3-0, he came out there Saturday afternoon and got blasted and did not look good, allowing all the hits, all the runs, was not quality and was not sharp whatsoever, Doc.
What were the positives that people saw in the Tigers organization to bring him in? Because once you saw his numbers from last season, you thought, well, he looks to be a guy on the decline. He doesn't look to be a pitcher that you can count on to eat up a lot of innings. So what was the reason Pelfrey was brought here? I don't get it. It just seems like it's a situation where this is a player they're hoping is going to be successful, whereas a guy like Zimmermann, you kind of know is going to be successful. And the Tigers really can't afford it, especially at that point in time with the shakiness now. It starts to put into question pitchers 3, 4, and 5, you got to have some question marks.
Well, I told you that before the season started, Doc. You heard it here, okay? So you better remember that. You heard it from this guy, too, Vito Jerome Chirco, talking about the strength of the rotation, or lack thereof, which is really the case there for the Tigers from 3 through 5 in their rotation. And Pelfrey is the reason why it's going to be a weakness, I think, this year, Doc, because look at what he did. Now, he's not going to be that bad consistently, going 3 2/3 innings only, allowing 6 runs on 8 hits in his debut start with the Tigers. He won't be that poor and miserable going forward from start to start. But the thing is, that's the worst-case scenario you're going to get out of Mike Pelfrey, who realistically right now is your 4th starter because Shane Green is your 5th. And you know what? Until Daniel Norris gets back, when he does get back healthy, Pelfrey will be that fourth starter, that guy that's going to be expected to do a little bit more than the guy who is the fifth starter in the rotation. And Norris will presumably gain the fifth starter spot when he comes back off the DL. But in the future, maybe even by midseason, he'll be the much better starter and much more reliable guy than Mike Pelfrey.
Now, am I wrong? Are the Tigers 3-3, or what's the record right now as we're recording this?
They won their first 3 games, you're right, and they lost Saturday against the Yankees with Pelfrey on the mound. He was miserable. They got rained out Sunday night, and then Monday they lost again. So they're 3-2 because JV lost his second start, and that was the second loss of the season for the Tigers.
Okay, gonna have
so the News got it wrong?
The News.
She's not the Free Press, at least.
Yes,
baby.
The Detroit News has the record currently at 3 wins and 4 losses. I'm looking at it, I'm like, that doesn't look right.
Wait, 3 and 4, you're saying too?
I'm going to
3
show
and
it to
4,
you.
that bad. They messed it up.
Error, yes.
So not just 3 and 3, you said 3 and 3, because I could see them maybe messing that up. I mean, still it shouldn't happen. And let me read, I don't have my glasses on, but yeah, what are they? Is that from last year? No, they started 11 and 2, so it couldn't even be right last year. Come on, Doc.
They're going to earn a tweet from me? I mean, no, they're wrong.
Can we get that oh man, that drop from Gus Johnson? Because that deserves it right there, Doc.
Dan Miller, Vito.
Oh, no!
That was Dan Miller?
Yeah, that's Dan Miller.
Oh, my God. I thought it was Gus Johnson all this time.
I think that...
It should have been Gus, because that's him, man.
I believe the call is from the Hail Mary when Green Bay had that miraculous...
That's how he reacted to it.
Oh,
so Dan Miller did not like it, huh?
Yeah, the Detroit News has the sports
So
article.
the News messed it up? Well, the Free Press we know didn't mess it up. At least not that bad. Never messes it up that bad, Doc.
Now, before we go forward.
Yes.
Do I send a tweet to the News saying, hey, now, there is a little bit of an issue with the paper that I'm reading. Factually, it's wrong.
Use the hey now from Howard Stern you're saying then in that tweet.
I'm going to have to do it. I can't help it. I got to do it.
You can criticize. Don't we criticize here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network? We have no restrictions. Nobody's coming at us telling us we can't do it. Well, unless it's you, Doc. You are the podfather. But if you're not going to say no to it, then you're the man to do it. Go after it, Doc. So I give you more than a few rights, and you got it all. Just take care of it, man. You got all the access in the world. Take care of it. So we know Doc. He's good for that. He'll take care of that matter right there for us here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And, you know, we recapped a little bit Pelfrey. He was miserable, as we said. But JV wasn't much better, Doc, huh? In his second start of the season. Wasn't that disappointing? And going all that time with the pitches, 100-plus pitches he threw. Brad Ausmus, once again, should we call him Brad Asmus? Because look at what he did. Deciding to leave JV out there, who wasn't the sharpest. He knew that going into JV's final inning, which actually did not even become the 6th inning. He didn't even last through 5 official innings yesterday. How disappointing was that out of JV when we saw him be so good in his first start against the Miami Marlins and actually have a no-hitter at one point in that game as well against the Fish?
Yeah, it's very disappointing. Just due to the nature of his contract, the expectations, the fact that we need JV to really have a successful season, he got hit quite a bit by Pittsburgh. The Pirates were able to really attack his secondary pitches. His fastballs were, not doing their thing, and so Pittsburgh was just able to come out there and really, cause a lot of damage. And it's one of those things where in the losses they haven't even been competitive games, so it's not a really good thing, and it's something that is, I guess you could say it's a concern, but I'm not really surprised in terms of talking about JV. Everyone's like, well, he's the JV of old, but I haven't seen it yet. I know that in the second half of last season, he was effective. He did a lot of good stuff. And it's early. It's one start, so I'm not going to read too much into it. But when he goes off, I'm just hoping that the damage is not going to be like we saw versus Pittsburgh, because they caused some damage.
So listen to this. Now, I believed it was his first time. His second time where he threw 100-plus pitches and didn't make it through 5 official innings in a start. JV was that bad. Went 4 1/3, not even 4 2/3. And like I said, not even 5. He went 4 1/3 innings and knocked around, was he? Yes, he was, for 7 runs on 10 hits. And that was the most runs he allowed in a single start in interleague play in his career as well. He's always been the dominant starter in interleague play. I believe he was 25-3 entering yesterday against the Buccos. Then he gets rocked around for the 10 hits and the 7 runs allowed. Miserable outing. And as I said, now the second time in his career in the big leagues where he threw 100-plus pitches but only went less than 5. He's got to make it through 5, Doc. He's got to go more than 5. Pitch 6-7 innings consistently. And especially right now with the middle inning relief issue, kind of being in flux because of the injuries of Blaine Hardy, of Alex Wilson. And you need those guys healthy for sure, but especially when you have a guy like JV struggling out there, Mike Pelfrey on Saturday against the Yankees, when those guys are struggling, can't even go their 5 innings, which really are required, is what is required out of starting pitchers, is to go 5 innings. So they can't do that. Well, then you're in big-time problematic scenarios and situations where you really can't muster too much. You can't really get out of it without having to go through troublesome issues. I mean, because your starters have to go, as I said, have to go at least 5 and really should go 6 or 7. So JV not doing that as the ace, that's a big-time issue right there, Doc, to say the least. And then I know Pelfrey's not expected to be great, to be lights out, but he's got to go 5 innings at least as well. And especially, as I said, right now with the middle inning relief pitchers and those middle inning, rolls out of the pen being in flux because of the injuries of Alex Wilson and Blaine Hardy. So they got to get those guys back. And especially when you have guys struggling out there like Pelfrey, like Verlander, to even go 5 innings. And we hope now they don't have to struggle with this issue going forward, Verlander, Pelfrey, because even with Blaine Hardy and Alex Wilson back, you still don't want these guys going less than 5 or going only 5 on a consistent basis. And especially your ace starting pitcher, Justin Verlander, who was so smooth, so good in his opening day start against the Miami Marlins in Miami. So he's got to bounce back, and I got to believe, you know what? The next time he throws 100-plus pitches, he'll be throwing at least 5 innings. He'll be going 6 or 7 if he throws 100-plus pitches in his next start. And I think in any start, almost, you can guarantee that going forward for JV in 2016. And now, it begs the question here, Doc. Brett Ausmus, maybe, right? Allowing his man, his ace starting pitcher who battled injuries last year in the first half of the season, to go all these pitches, throw all these pitches, when he knew this guy was struggling. Had allowed all these hits, all these runs, the most ever by JV in interleague play, and allowing him to go back out there to continue to pitch with not his best stuff. This early in the season, Doc, how big of a miscue was that from the manager, Brad Ausmus, in your opinion? I think a big-time miscue on his behalf.
I think a lot of people are saying, and they tweeted us on our Twitter page, @DetroitPodcast, this was one of the first times they could say this season that, hey, this was a mistake, and everyone's talking about it. Now you're talking about it. Yeah, it's a mistake. I mean, so it was obvious that Justin Verlander was struggling, and it was a situation where that his stuff wasn't there. He was getting rocked, and to let him go 111 pitches, I think it's a little bit too much. You have to think long-term. This is a guy, really, in the end, what's going to happen in April, and I'm reading here Lynn Henning's article talking about we shouldn't really judge the team based on the first month due to the schedule, the weather, and some things like that. I agree with Lynn a little bit, but I also think that you can't win the division in the first month, but you definitely could do some damage to your chances if you start off really bad. And so I don't think they're going to have prolonged losing streaks with the nature of the rotation and the offense, but I'm always looking for the manager to take care of his players, and to go 111 pitches struggling like that, I think it was a mistake, and you're right to bring it up.
This early in the season is a big-time issue with Brad Ausmus doing this to JV, his ace starting pitcher, who struggled injury, was battling the injury bug all of the first half of last season. So this guy is not getting any younger either, in his 30s now. And with that being said, you got to take precaution with this guy. You got to play it safe and not put him in harm's way this early in the season by allowing him to throw 100-plus pitches. 110-plus at the, as you said, 111 pitches in his second start of the season when he had his B stuff, his JV, and not his varsity stuff. No pun intended there about JV. So, yes. Was it a miscue? Yes. And I think a big time on the behalf of Brad Ausmus, one that could get him fired later in the season if he does this to JV or to another starting pitcher and get some hurt out there while they are on the mound. And especially if the Tigers at that point are struggling because of the fact that, well, maybe they're less equipped than some other ball clubs to succeed, but also because of the fact that Brad Ausmus is struggling as an in-game manager as he did last year and also in his first year as a big league skipper for the Tigers. And the first year in his entire life of being a coach at the big league level. So he can't afford to have these mistakes on a consistent basis. Not with this ball club right now that is missing some guys due to injury. And might as well deal with that going forward. And even with the guy that he put out there in harm's way too early in the season in JV. So we can all say this, I think, too. Now, if an injury does flare up in the near future, Doc, we can maybe blame it on Brad Ausmus. And especially if he continues to stupidly use his man JV in a way where he's allowing him to pitch all these pitches, right? In a game where he doesn't have his sharpest stuff, his best stuff, his A and or varsity stuff on the mound that he can carry on the mound almost every fifth day. But when he doesn't have it, you can't keep him out there, right? Can't let him linger with the ineffective stuff. And that's where Brad Ausmus is to blame with Justin Verlander in his second start of the season.
Now, later on in the podcast, we'll dig into some things that are of major concern. The McCann injury, what's happening with that bullpen. Some concerns, but I want to try to also mix in the positives as well. There were a lot of good things going on. Victor Martinez has shown that he's coming back, and he's shown that he has the ability, maybe when healthy, to carry this team. JD got off the schneid, hit his first home run. Nicky C's not too bad. I know he's a guy that is much criticized and is someone that is looked at kind of in a negative light, hit a home run. But in that game versus Pittsburgh, when they were climbing back 7-4, runners in scoring position, swung on the first pitch, and it was a situation where he kind of cost the team. But I want to look at that later on in this podcast. But coming up next, we got a special guest.
Bill Dugan of Roseville, who caught the 5 foul balls in yesterday's matinee game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll be right back with Bill Dugan. Looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan quarterback John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the very highest quality and the very best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going online to TopCatTeamSales.com. Once again, the website is TopCatTeamSales.com. And also, remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter at Team Top Cat. And with Roseville native Bill Dugan, now of widespread fame because of his foul ball efficiency with catching foul balls and making it big, being on Sports Center and now being on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Bill, welcome to the show.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Very good. Thank you for coming on. And now you're not too big time for us, huh? Because I know you were on the Sports Center, the 6 o'clock Sports Center yesterday. I actually watched it with you being interviewed by Lindsey Zarniak, and you did really well on there. Did you have any nerves going into that segment with Lindsey on Sports Center?
I guess I didn't know what to expect. It happened so fast. ESPN contacted me right about the end of the game and asked if I could make it over to a studio right down the street. So I said, sure. Within like 20 minutes, a half hour, I was getting mic'd up and on the air. So I guess I didn't really have any. It happened so fast.
Now, you saw Tim Kirkshin. I mean, did you realize that he was going to be on there for that segment as well? Because he's a big-name MLB insider for ESPN, and that would have made me nervous.
I guess a little nervous, just knowing you're live national TV. There's no editing or anything.
And now let's talk about what you did yesterday in this matinee ball game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Being so efficient at catching foul balls, and you've done it before as well. But let's just focus on yesterday's game first and foremost in the catching of 5 foul balls. And people were already tweeting about you, and you already went viral after catching 4 foul balls. That was good enough. And then you topped it. You had to go and top it, and you caught the 5th foul ball. So, hey, let me know, as a guy that's never caught these foul balls, how do you get it done as a fan?
You know, I was asked that question again. It's hard to say. I was just sitting there. I mean, the balls came to me. I mean, it was in a 15-foot radius, so it was more luck than anything. So, I mean, I can't say that it was because of my skill or anything else. People keep asking the same thing. But, I mean, it was more luck than anything. But
do you need skill? I mean, maybe am I lacking skill because I haven't caught a foul ball in my lifetime? I mean, I'm younger. I'm only 22, so I have time to obviously catch a foul ball still.
I guess it just depends on where you're sitting, I guess. I mean, behind home plate, off to the right, off to the left. I see a lot of people, like I said before, get them over on the foul line, down by the wall. But I'm not brave enough to kind of go down there. That's guys your age. I'm a little too old for that. I'd take one to the face before I could have the reaction time to catch one of those balls.
Well, it sounds like you need the mitt then. But I was going to ask you, mitt or no mitt, what do you prefer and what do you think is better for trying to catch a foul ball?
I would say for someone who's older like myself or amateur or what have you, I would say behind home plate, especially at Comerica Park. It's got a good walking area, a landing course of cement. You've got a lot of room to move around, I guess. And a lot of balls do come right there. Ironically, they land right pretty much on that cement course, or they hit the wall up above, up on the glass, and bounce back. And
then I saw you fielding the balls off of that wall, and it looked like you perfected that style. You know, you had some skill there in fielding those balls off the wall. That was pretty impressive to me.
I think I know the one you're talking about. I actually didn't expect it to come right down towards me, so to say. I expected it to bounce a little further back into the crowd, so that was kind of a shocker to me when it came to me. I guess it depends on the spin after the hitter hits it.
Yeah, and that takes some skill, I think, as well, judging it, or maybe just, hey, getting lucky, as you said. And, hey, there has to be a lot of luck involved in succeeding in a lot of aspects of life, and even catching foul balls, it seems like. I've learned that much today, Bill.
Yeah, it's luck. I can't say it's skill. It's luck.
Now, Bill, let me ask you this. How have you dealt with all the fame recently, all this newfound fame? How is it treating you?
A little crazy. I mean, the phone's been ringing like crazy. All my friends and family texting me, kind of sending me the same messages. I saw you here. I saw you there. I don't know. It's all new. It's just overnight. It just happened. Bam.
Well, Bill, now the reaction from some maybe negative people out there, maybe the negative, the naysayers to your doing of good with the catching of foul balls. What kind of critics have been out there since you achieved all this newfound fame with the catching of the foul balls?
I guess there's some people saying something about fans push kids out of the way. They, act a little obnoxious, knocking people over. As you see, I mean, I don't think I did any of that. I've never done any of that kind of stuff. I've never pushed anyone out of the way to catch a foul ball. To me, it's not worth it. It's a ball. Again, I mean, it was 5 balls. So, I mean, the 5th one came straight to me. So there was no moving around or anything. But I don't think I did anything wrong. I mean, heck, I gave all the balls to kids,
And I was going to say that you gave all these foul balls to kids, so you gave back. It's not like you were just taking them all for yourself or being greedy. You weren't that at all.
I took none. I kept the first ball, and once the second one came, I gave that one away. You can't keep 2. So then when the third one came, I gave that one away. And I think it was either the 3rd or the 4th ball, someone else was saying, me over here. As I threw it somewhere else. So I reached in the bag and grabbed the number 1 ball and threw it to the person I was originally going to throw it to. So I got rid of all the balls, so I got nothing out of it as far as, any baseballs.
So, Bill, though, how many foul balls do you have to show over the years from being a Tigers fan and going to games?
It's not a lot the past few years, but back in 2002, I managed to get 4 during batting practice and then 4 during a game. Not catching them as far as during the game. As you know, 2002 was a horrible season.
It was. Not many fans there.
Yeah, it was 200-300 people there. I mean, maybe that's an exaggeration, but not much off. But it would be a race between me and someone else just to go through the seats, and pick up a ball that was fouled off there because there's nobody there. So I don't look at that as a record so much as this. This was pretty neat, having 5 come, like I said, within a 15-foot radius of where I was sitting.
It was very neat, very impressive, and now you're famous. And one other really quick question. We've been talking about you going to Tigers games, but how about the baseball team on the field there, the Detroit Tigers this year? What is your outlook for the squad?
It was looking pretty good from the beginning, and it's still too early to say. Hopefully, I mean, like any other Tigers fan, I want to see them go all the way. I've been waiting since '84. I moved back to Detroit from San Diego in '84. Ironically, they played the Padres in '84. Got to witness my team, which was the Padres at the time, lose to the Tigers in the World Series. I became a Tigers fan that year, was living in Detroit, and been waiting for them to take it all, again since then.
Maybe one day soon, to get one for Mr. I. That is the goal, Has to be right now.
Absolutely.
Well, with that being said,
Absolutely.
Mr. Dugan, Bill Dugan, that is, from Roseville, thank you very much for all your time today on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Hey, and good luck to you catching some foul balls in the future. Not that you need any more luck on your side.
Hey, thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the show.
All right, thank you. You have a good one.
You too.
And that was Mr. Bill Dugan, a Roseville native, now of internet and nationwide fame from his catching of 5 foul balls yesterday in the matinee game for the Tigers at Comerica Park against the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Are you surprised that even though he had such a great moment giving away baseball, the kids didn't even keep that many of the baseballs? There were still haters out there that still kind of wanted to take the shine away, man. You're always going to find haters. It's very interesting that would still happen, even though there was something that was such a great story from such a terrible baseball game.
Well, yeah, he was a highlight of the game, but haters will hate, right? No doubt about it. And what we know about you is that you're a certified G and bona fide stud, no matter what. And the Podfather, as I call it, each and every single edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. And, he was the highlight because JV was so miserable. But as we've talked about, summed it up, I think he'll be all right going forward. We'll get back to being JV that brings the varsity stuff on a every 5th-day basis, Doc.
So who's been the MVP so far of the first week? Who's a player that you've kind of looked at and said, wow, this is good. I'm happy with the progress. I mean, I would say the first one you look at is Zimmerman. Came out with the expectation opening day, shut down the Yankees, and was just awesome. And if he can continue that, then you got your bona fide stud at number 1. And
bona fide stud at number 2. Now, JV better be the number 1 like we've talked about. I think he's the ace. He wants the ace caliber status.
He's
and still deserves it. One poor start. It's only one poor start, remember, too.
Yeah, he's ace in terms of, definitely recognition and perception, but I think Zimmerman's better. I think Zimmerman's better at this point.
Didn't have the greatest season last year, so
we'll see.
We'll see.
Good spring, and
that'll be good.
Start.
That'll be good. If there's a battle between him and JV for the number one, top dog status in the rotation, that'll be a good thing for the Tigers rotation as a whole. And for us, the concern is 3 through 5. And let's talk a little bit in detail about Mike Pelfrey and how he was critiqued and bombarded, and really I should say criticized and then bombarded with many tweets, negative tweets, dissing him and his start because he was so ineffective on Saturday in his first start with the Tigers against the Yankees. He was not even close to sharp or effective, Doc. He pitched, as I said earlier in the podcast, 3 2/3 innings, and he allowed 6 runs on 8 hits. Not good, and had many Tigers fans yearning for the arrival of top prospect Michael Fulmer, as well as the return of Daniel Norris from the disabled list. And I tweeted that much out on Twitter during that ball game with Pelfrey, and I don't know how much attention it really got or how many people agree with me, but that's my sentiment, what I expressed then and what I will express now and am about Mike Pelfrey, that, hey, man, after that start, Doc, I want Michael Fulmer up. I mean, already. Now, it's not going to happen this early. They'd be stupid to call him up. It'd be premature to call him up this early in the season. But I think if he keeps pitching like this, a midseason call-up and maybe even a tad bit earlier than a midseason call-up could happen for Michael Fulmer. And then Norris coming back from the DL. If Shane Green proves to be effective and Pelfrey not so much, Norris, I think, should take Pelfrey's spot in the rotation, no matter how much Pelfrey is making every single start that he makes, because he has a 2-year, $16 million deal. That's a lot of money to be paid, in totality over 2 years for a guy that's really a fifth starter at best, and still wasn't even that great as a fifth starter last year in the Twinkies rotation for a team that wasn't a great ball club. Now, better than the Tigers as they finished last year, better than the Tigers in the AL Central. But still, Pelfrey as an everyday fifth starter, I'm not liking the chances or odds of him being successful in that role every fifth day, Doc.
That's the biggest concern right now is Pelfrey. What's he going to do? Sanchez was good. Verlander,
and that was good to see, Sanchez.
It was good. Yes, Sanchez was good to see. McCann's been hitting the ball okay. You have a situation where the team in the first 3 games was hitting effectively and with power. So if that can keep up in key situations, then everything's going to be okay. Now, another aspect that I guess you could say was effective was the additions in the bullpen. Justin Wilson, Lowe, have been guys that when they've been put in have been something that you could say, okay, not bad. And you got to remember, we're coming from a situation where that bullpen was so decimated last season and was so terrible that anybody they threw out there you didn't have confidence in. But the first couple appearances for Wilson and Lowe, I'm satisfied. So far, so good.
Yeah, you know what? I expect that out of those two the rest of the way this season. For me, it's more about the middle innings now. What's going to happen with those, as I already talked about. Getting Wilson back, getting Hardy back is so crucial right now because you have to use guys like Kyle Ryan and Buck Farmer right now. And speaking of Buck Farmer, he was miserable as well, Doc, on Saturday against the Yankees. After relieving Mike Pelfrey, it went from one bad thing to another, huh? It did with Buck Farmer and what he did there.
I guess you could say with someone like that, we're still trying to wait and see how these guys evolve, and it's still too early. But Buck Farmer's been a guy that they've been trying to mix and match. He's trying to change his delivery, trying to change this, trying to change that. At some point, I feel like I would cut the cord and just say, okay, this is a guy, put him in the minors, let him figure this out, and just move on. I mean, really, anybody attached to that 2015 bullpen, I'm not really satisfied with. And I would have started over. I wouldn't have, let Buck Farmer in it because his stuff is hittable, and he's not reliable at this point in time. I wouldn't rely upon Buck Farmer. Right now, you got Wilson and Lowe, and now we're waiting on Alex Wilson to return, and we'll see how he starts when he comes back from the injury, and then we'll go forward. But K-Rod has been okay since that. Can you believe that opening start? Seriously, a 3-run lead that first game, and K-Rod was not able to get the save. That was shocking in the first game because everybody's on pins and needles with this bullpen. Everybody's a little bit worried about what's going to happen, and that's what is given to us that first game. But he's come back. I don't think he's going to be as bad as Joe Nathan, but again, you still don't have that lockdown closer, 1, 2, 3, and even in his start, the second time around, you still got let runners on base. Still situations where it's still a little bit shaky, but hey, he was able to get Stanton out that last out, I believe, in the second game versus Miami. So, hey.
He did it, but we can't deal with another roller coaster closer.
We just can't.
Can our hearts take it?
No.
Can our blood pressure take it? No.
Right.
Not any of us here, Doc. And K-Rod, he won't be lights out, though, maybe, every time he closes out games for the Tigers this year because he's no longer that type of closer. He's no longer the true K-Rod where he Ks batters and makes batters look foolish when he makes a miss. He's no longer that kind of guy.
Lots of sliders, baby. Lots of sliders. Slider.
He's got to rely on the off-speed stuff, yes. And, the changeup is one that we should bring up that he relied upon it 43% of the time, I believe it was, last year with the Brew Crew, and was very efficient in getting guys out and getting saves, too, in the process using that changeup. For almost a majority, as the major pitch, it was the major pitch, using it 40+% of the time last year. So he did his job then. I think he'll do it now, but maybe not as effectively. But he still won't be a roller coaster closer, but not a shutdown 1, 2, 3 guy either at the same time. But better than Nathan, better than him for sure, okay? And better than Bruce Rondon has been in his, few stints as a closer when, Soria was dealt. Because Soria was good. Benoit, they were both good. Then Benoit was allowed to walk in free agency, remember, and to the Padres, and Soria was dealt. So we don't got those guys anymore. And those guys could bring the velocity a little bit more than K-Rod. But I'm not worried about K-Rod yet, to sum it up. So don't worry about him, Doc.
Okay, so just relax. Chill. Let's wait and see.
Yes. No overreacting yet.
Now, any concerns at all with this series versus Pittsburgh? It just seems like so far in the last couple seasons, Pittsburgh has our number, and it doesn't seem like this rivalry is definitely, it's not a two-way thing. Pittsburgh has the edge, and they're playing a lot better, and it's one of those things where you got the first two at Comerica, the next two in Pittsburgh. I'm not liking the matchup so far, and I'm hoping that they can turn it around. You concerned at all that they're going to walk away from the series, maybe not even taking a game?
Well, in the beginning of the season, you can't. It's too hard to tell always. I'll say this much. You can't overreact to the Tigers start yet, to JV start, to K-Rod's blown saves, to anything going on against the Yankees, against the Pittsburgh Pirates right now. It's way too early. And these ball clubs probably both will get better as the season progresses. I think the Pirates will be a division contender, will be a wild card team at least in the NL. And the Tigers can compete for that AL wild card spot.
Okay, so before we get to our next guest on the Tigers Talk podcast, what are one or two or three bullet points that we should look out for in the next week going forward before we record the next Tigers Talk podcast? What should we keep an eye on? Obviously, a one for me is going to be McCann's. He's going to be on the DL. Let's see what the MRI says. The X-ray was okay, but they're still waiting results on the MRIs on the 15-day DL. That's something I'm going to be peeking at for sure. And he was somebody that was starting to come into his own. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Pelfrey bouncing back, JV bouncing back, and Shane Green being effective as a fifth starter. And then Vimar hitting against righties now from the left side of the plate, being an efficient left-handed hitter. He was good hitting right-handed last year. But as a left-handed bat right now, he had those two pinch hit home runs, hit one against a right-handed pitcher from the left side of the plate. But since then, not as great, in the 200s for batting average. So he's got to hit for pop from the left side of the plate, and I want to see that out of him now going forward on a consistent basis as the DH in the Tigers' everyday lineup. So those are definitely the things to watch out for in the next week. And with all that said, those are my bullet points that I wanted to provide to you and to all our listeners here on today's Tigers Talk, Doc. And now coming up here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company is our next guest from Mlive.com, Mr. Aaron McMann. We'll be right back here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. And now with Aaron McMann from Mlive.com. Aaron, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Vito, I'm doing well. Just getting out of Pistons practice, so good timing.
So you're a man that's very busy covering the Pistons and the Tigers. And as you know, the Pistons are making their first trip to the postseason since the 08-09 campaign. And everybody's excited. We all should applaud them for making it in. And Stan Van Gundy's first time as well, making it in with the Pistons. So excitement is now spreading throughout the masses here. And at the Palace, there's a roar that hasn't been seen in recent memory. So with all that being said, Aaron, what do you expect out of these Pistons going into the playoffs?
Well, I expect a showing. I don't expect them to do much. I'd be shocked if they got out of the first round, to be honest with you. But no, if they can get in, they're obviously, if they can win a game, maybe two, and be competitive in a majority of the series, I think, it would be it'd be a step up. It'd be a good next step, I guess, for the franchise. The goal of the season was just to get in. So they're in, and in essence, they're playing with house money at this point. So, anything, a win, 2 wins would be great. Should they scrape it out, that'd be fantastic. But expectations are low, so I wouldn't, anything above a win, I think would be great.
And now, going to the Tigers, let's turn our attention to that as This is Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, and Aaron McMann is on with us from Mlive.com, not to be confused with Brian McCann. or James McCann of the Tigers, guys. Remember that much here. And, Aaron, I wanted to talk about the DH of the Tigers, Victor Martinez, who became the first player since at least 1914 to hit a pinch hit home run in each of his first 2 games of the season. Now, does that mean anything to you about where V-Mart is health-wise right now? And especially, when you take into account where he was last year and where he might get to this year.
Yeah, no, coming in, I was down in spring training for a couple of weeks back last month, and the talk around the team and the clubhouse was how healthy he was. He was much more healthier than he was last year. He kind of masqueraded it last year, and they didn't want to talk about it much, and they did things to try and protect him, so he didn't play, didn't plan to play in the field much. So the talk going in was how healthy he was. He looked good in spring training. He hit well. So for him to come in and get those 2 pinch hit home runs, I wasn't surprised. He pulled his groin late in spring, so there's some concern around that. But no, I think he's much healthier than he was last year, and I think you're going to see more production out of him this year. The last, I think, after those 2 pinch hit home runs, ironically, I think he went 0 for 9, 0 for 10 at the plate. He did get a hit yesterday. So, you're going to see, obviously, those dips and everything else out of him. But I think you're going to see a much healthier Victor Martinez this year, and you're going to see his numbers, I think, drastically increase.
Aaron, let's play a game now of Big Vito's over-under. You know me, I'm Big V, and we got to play it now here. And
sure.
Talking about V-Mart, though, he is our subject for Big Vito's over-under this week on Tigers Talk. And the over-under is the amount of games he will play in. Now, he played in 120 last year. Over or under that to start off regarding V-Mart?
I would say over, and that's obviously going to be dependent on his health. I mean, as long as he stays healthy and he doesn't get hurt again, and I would definitely think he'd hit the over mark there. I wouldn't be shocked if he's in 100, 130, 135 games.
That would be impressive. I think mightily impressive out of him at his advanced age of 37 and after last year. So the next one now for Big Vito's over-under regarding V-Mart is his batting average against righties as a left-handed bat. Now, it was .219 last year. Over or under that .219 batting average as a left-handed bat against righties this season?
No, I think it'd be over. Again, it's all dependent on health. I think all of his numbers are going to be better than they were last year across the board. So I would definitely go over there. I could see him being 230, 240. Absolutely.
Now you're making me excited here about V-Mart because I want to see something close to that out of him this year. So I hope we get that. And now moving on to another guy who I need some excitement, some hope about right now after being really demised yesterday in his start, Verlander, and seeing what he did. It was very lackluster, and it caused me to lose some hope a little bit, seeing what he did getting rocked in his second start of the 2016 campaign, lasting only 4 1/3 innings and being knocked around for 7 runs on 10 hits. And that was the most he's ever allowed in an interleague start. And just the second time in Verlander's career where he's thrown 100-plus pitches without making it through 5 innings. And I found out that stat, by the way, from your article on Mlive about the game yesterday, Aaron. So I appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah.
So tell me here, what was the difference between this start for JV and then his start against the Marlins last Tuesday?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. He was supposed to start Sunday night against the Yankees, and then obviously got rained out, snowed out, whatever you want to say. So I think the preparation was a little off. He's preparing for a Yankees lineup he was really familiar with. A lot of those guys he's faced over and over again through his career, so he had kind of a book on them. And not to say Pittsburgh isn't a foreign team to him, but to have to prepare for a game and then it get rained out 4 hours prior, and then him having to go through the preparation process again for a different team. I think that throws a monkey wrench into things. He won't admit that, but I think that plays into effect. And then in the case yesterday, and it was consistent across the board. The Pirates were sitting on the fastball. The first inning or two, you could tell most of their hits were all on the 2 or 4 seam fastball. So they would wait for it to come. When they saw it, Verlander's velocity isn't what it used to be, as we all know. I mean, it's still good. He was touching the mid-90s early, but when they know it's coming, it's easy to hit, and that's what Pittsburgh did yesterday. And then Verlander tried to change it up later on with his changeup and tried to work in the slider he's been working on, and they hit that too. So they had a good game plan against him, and I think between the game plan and him being his routine being affected by the rainout, I think, factored in. Because you got to remember his opening start against Miami, it looked pretty good, and I think most of us expected something similar this time around. And I think had they pitched against the Yankees, you might have gotten it. But with all these factors, coming into play, I think it was just a recipe for not a good outing as we saw.
And that season debut start against the Marlins for JV was almost a no-hitter. Do you think it would have happened, Aaron, that he would throw a no-hitter?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing with Verlander is he always throws a ton of pitches, so you don't know, if he's getting gassed or not. And we talk about that a lot, with the third, fourth inning, and the guy's got a no-hitter going. And typically, it's that fifth or sixth inning where they get hit. So it's hard to say. I don't like to make prognostications during games. I mean, it is what it is. And that goes back to, people like to, if you're on social media or whatever, people like to, or whatever, people are like talking about, no-hitters because they're afraid to be a jinx or whatever. I don't know. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I didn't have a prediction either way.
And it's really not time to overreact to JV struggling, right? Not to get totally hopeless and be in despair after yesterday's poor performance for himself against the Pirates, right?
No, and that was one of the things he actually brought up with the media afterwards. He said he actually feels good. He feels at this time this year compared to last year, he feels much better. It's obviously because he's not dealing with a shoulder issue, but his velocity's there, his pitches he feels are comfortable. So yeah, he feels good. I think it was a bad day for him.
I think it was too, and you know what? Let's not make this a bad day here. So we're going to move on to some positives for the Tigers now and give ourselves kind of an outlook. And it involves my 5 components that I believe are necessary for a team to not only win a division title, but also to win the World Series. And I brought up the middle of the diamond defense, the lineup 1 through 9, the health of the ball club, the manager as 4 of the major 5 factors. And, I wanted to ask you now, regarding all these factors, what are the strengths that could elevate the Tigers to that status as a top dog in baseball, and what are the weaknesses? So using all the 5, and starting with the health of the ball club, do you think it is smart or dumb to say that the overall health of the team will actually be a strike against the Tigers this year?
No, you're 100% right there. I've done several interviews since spring training, and everybody seems to ask me, if I think the Tigers can compete in AL Central, and my answer is always yes, as long as they stay healthy. If they stay healthy and they're not dealing with a mountain of injuries to a number of their big hitters, I think not only can they compete the division, but they'll obviously be able to compete for the pennant and maybe even a World Series. So I mean, this is a team last year who everybody thought was primed for another playoff run, and you saw what the injuries did. I mean, it decimated them. So yeah, no, I mean, injuries and health of this club is going to be huge this season.
And I have that as a strike against the ball club as well going into this year and affecting the Tigers negatively as a whole all year long. And then I wanted to bring up another thing that I think will be a strike against the Tigers, and that is the pitching staff, the rotation and the pen as a whole. Tell me what you think about that. Will it be a strike against the ball club, that pitching staff this year?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the bullpen's deeper than it has been in a long time. Once you get Alex Wilson back healthy, I think K-Rod's struggle in that first game, I think was outlier. I think you're going to see consistent effort out of him all year. I mean, just look at his numbers historically. He's pretty reliable. And I know that's weird to hear as a Tigers fan, a reliable closer, but I think you'll get pretty consistent effort out of him. I think the bullpen's. I mean, I think it's deep. It's a lot stronger than it has been in a long time. And again, it goes back to the health of the starting rotation too. If everybody can stay healthy, Anibal Sanchez included, their starting rotation is pretty strong. I'm a little concerned about Mike Pelfrey. We saw him the other day; he got rocked, and we may see that, a few times this season. It may be the case with him. But I mean, if he can be a 500 pitcher, he was, I think, 6-11 last year. So if they get him closer to 500 with his starts, they say you're only as good as your weakest link, and I think if the rotation can stay healthy and put together what they're supposed to do, I think the rotation or the pitching staff in general, I think is a strength for them.
Aaron, now my last 3 components here. Now, the lineup from top to bottom, a good defense up the middle at catcher, second, shortstop, and in center field, and then the manager who avoids making in-game mistakes on a consistent basis. Maybe not the case with Brad Ausmus, but anyways, I wanted to ask you now, of those 3 components, what will be strikes against the Tigers, and what will be strengths, in your opinion?
Sure. Ausmus, I think, can be a strike. He's still early as a manager. So he's still learning on the fly. He made the other day. He was criticized for this, but he held out, the Castellanos for Micah Vilas. Castellanos is coming off of 4 days. He's hit pretty well early on, and he hit well in spring training. So the knock against him was, why take out a hot hitter? And so I think you're going to see moves like that from Austin. I think maybe you'll scratch your head at sometimes. You hope they'll turn into big blunders. And I think you're going to continue to see him learn. It's just a matter of a fact. Happens, if you're young at something, you're going to screw up on occasion. You just hope that it's limited, and I think Austin has learned a lot in the last couple of years. So I think he's still a strike in essence of the Tigers a little bit. I don't think he's as bad as you've seen. So no, I think he would be a strike. The middle infield defensively, I think is one of the stronger middle infields in the league. ESPN put together some rankings of the shortstop, second baseman combo pre-season, and in terms of turning double plays and the like, and Iglesias and Kinzer Rex are right near the top. So I don't think that's an issue. The lineup, I think, is strong. Their only issue, I think, is a lack of left-handed hitting. I mean, V-Mark can hit left-handed, obviously, and he will when needed. But and Ghost does on occasion. But you're going to see some movement in center field with Ghost, just like yesterday. Ghost sat. So, I mean, you're going to see movement in center field. So you're also going to see maybe one, maybe two left-handed hitters in the lineup. So I think the only problem with the Tigers lineup is it's too right-handed focused. But when you got hitters like when you've got hitters like Miguel Cabrera and V-Mart and JD and everything else, I mean, sometimes you can get away with that. So I think the lineup top to bottom has to be a strength. I think the middle infield is a strength, and Brad Ausmus would be the strike out of the three.
So I gave you a lot to digest there throughout this whole entire segment. So maybe I'll leave you with this, and maybe it's a simpler task for you to encounter, to experience here. And it's my question about your overall outlook for the Tigers. And it's this: can the Tigers make the jump and finish off the season with a World Series title? So making the jump from last to first and winning a World Series title as the 2013 Boston Red Sox did.
I don't see them winning the World Series. They got too many new pieces here. I think that to maybe come together this soon. I think they can get to 85 wins, maybe close to 90. I'm thinking between 85 and 90 wins. I think they compete for the AL Central. Do they win it? I don't know. Do they get in the playoffs? I would say yes. If you put a gun to my head right now, if I had to put money on the line, whatever you want to say. I would say the Tigers get in the playoffs. World Series wise, I don't see it this year.
I'm kind of feeling the same way, sharing that sentiment right now, Aaron, and I'm not going to put a gun to your head for anything here, so let that be known as well. So in the future, when you come back on, that's not going to happen here on Tigers Talk. All right?
Appreciate it.
And with that, Aaron, thank you very much for all your time today on Tigers Talk, and best of luck to you going forward at Mlive.
Yeah, absolutely, Vito. It was good, and I'll be glad to come on again.
All right, man. Thanks. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too, Vito.
And that was my man, Aaron McMann, no pun intended there. Great stuff from him. Always have fun with him when we talk about the Tigers and about sports in general. He can cover it all. Covers the entire sports landscape and even covers the Pistons right now for Mlive. And guess what? They're in the playoffs too. It's really April in the D right now, Doc.
Vito, what I like about you, you're like to end the interview. You're like, I'm going to make it easy on you. So, do you think the Tigers are going to win the World Series?
Not so easy. It's not a simpler task there, right?
That's not really a simple task. It's a really complicated situation, and obviously, and he answered it very professionally.
He did.
I enjoyed
That's the way you have to answer it.
Yeah, very professionally. I don't think that the Tigers, in anyone's mind, are World Series contenders, but by September, maybe you make a couple moves. Let's see what Al Avila, general manager, can do at the trade deadline. Maybe we can get into that whole buy or sell. Remember that?
That'll be fun again,
buy
right?
or sell.
Lots of talk here on Tigers Talk last year and this year, I bet, as well.
Buy, definitely.
It better be buy. If they want to win anything, it better be buy. Last year they had to sell. That was their 1 year off from contending for a division title. Now, let's have some more fun here. And I have a trivia segment I wanted to bring up to you. It might be common sense and totally easy to answer. Not actually a complex task like I gave to Aaron McMann at the end of our segment there. It is this trivia question about Roderick Allen.
Now,
you know who Rod Allen is?
I do.
You do. Everybody should know.
Now, I do want to admit something.
Yep.
Trivia is... Now, I do appear to be a very bright man.
Well, I was never leading on to that, but you can call yourself that.
I'm very bright.
Yeah.
I'm very intellectual. I have a lot of degrees. But trivia is something that I'm not really good at. So I'm very interested to see what you've brought to the table in the first edition of the game. Roderick Allen.
Trivia. Simple as that. Trivia about Rod Allen, the man in the booth alongside Mario and Pemba for a lot of the games in the past and this year as well. So the first question should be a simple one, Doc. It is, how many home runs? Now, actually, I'm going to ask it this way. Doc, do you know if you and I have as many home runs as Rod Allen did in his entire Major League Baseball career? Is it true or false to say that we have as many home runs as Rod Allen had in his big league career?
I'm going to say false. He's got to have at least one.
Okay, so you really think it's false? Well, now you know with me saying that, it was true. That actually, we have as many home runs here, sitting here, never playing Major League Baseball, as Rod Allen did in his entire big league career.
None, huh?
None. 0 home runs, 3 RBIs, and a 220 batting average in 31 games played and 50 at-bats. Now we know a little bit more about Rod Allen, right? And you didn't think you would learn anything today.
That's good.
But you learned something today about Rod and Roderick. It's really Roderick. And it's funny, it is that, formerly, because my dad and I, my brother and I, and Dad would always kid around about his name and call him Roderick, jokingly, and it really is his formal first name. It is his birth name. And I love that. That's why the name of this segment will be Roderick Allen Trivia, and probably be a bi-weekly feature on Tigers Talk going forward, Doc. I hope you can stand it and get a few questions right here eventually for Roderick Allen Trivia. If you're so bright as you lead on everybody to believe.
Let's go. Let's hit me with the next question.
So that was the only question for today. That's the first and only question. Playing it simple. We might dive into some more facts going forward about Roderick Allen, though.
Oh, okay, good. So I get to...
So you're off the hook. You
get to leave me walking away feeling like a failure. Great, Vito.
You're walking away feeling like a failure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a good question, because my first natural thought was to say that this is too obvious that he must have one. So then you change your mind. You go, well, wait a minute. Is it too obvious? So it made me switch my answers. So very good, Vito. You brought it. You brought it. Very good.
We are that good of major leaguers that we have as many home runs as Roderick Allen did in his entire big league career. And that is your question today for Roderick Allen Trivia on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Now, moving on, I wanted to read some tweets, okay, about Mike Pelfrey and Buck Farmer from Saturday. Okay, they weren't good. We know that, right? And the fans on Twitter, the media members, let those guys hear about it via some mean tweets. So today, we're reading mean tweets about Mike Pelfrey and Buck Farmer. And here are some we want to deliver. And they are maybe a little bit to digest here and there. The first one is from @RotoKevin. And he tweets out, replacing Mike Pelfrey with Buck Farmer is like pouring gasoline on a tire fire.
This is bad.
That is bad. That's a good one, right? Mm-hmm. So let's move on now to what @Robbie DESJ tweeted out on Saturday regarding Farmer and Pelfrey. He said, I believe Buck Farmer's only good pitching performance still resulted in the Tigers losing by 10. That was good too, right? Now, tweet number 3 from @Typestown. This guy is a Tigers minor league prospect guy too, so very knowledgeable. And he tweeted out on Saturday, can anyone think of a game where Buck Farmer pitched in the big leagues and had a good outing? Now, that's slamming him a little bit right there.
Yep.
But still, you can get meaner. We've seen meaner, and I think you even saw meaner, right, on Saturday regarding Buck Farmer, the Buck truck. So, tweet number 4 now from MLB.com, Metropolitan's beat writer, that is, of the New York Mets. And his Twitter handle is @Anthony DiComo. I love that last name. And he tweeted out, Mike Pelfrey, serving up 4-run third innings since 2006.
Vito, good stuff. There was some mean tweets sent about Josh Jackson,
that recruit. What was said? Tell me.
I don't recall. I tried to ignore it because I was just like, wow. But they were pretty mean, saying that he made the wrong choice. And I appreciate your effort, but we're going to have to really dig through the Twitter minefield and find some of these tweets.
Because you can find them. You're all over it.
Yes, I'll help you find it. It was very good. Very entertaining stuff, Vito. Very good. I was fascinated by really looking at the Tigers' first week. You had great guests this week. It was a very entertaining podcast. You did a good job. You're looking dapper.
Well, thank
Vito.
you. Not for the right reasons. My mom's uncle passed away, and we sent our condolences to the Salvatore Valenti family for his passing. So that is that. And, it wasn't the best situation today, going to the funeral and seeing everybody cry and be in a somber mood. But that was that, and now we're trying to be more excitable, have more fun here, and that's what we do here each and every single week on Tigers Talk Doc. And we had a lot of fun today with Aaron McMann from Mlive, and the surprise guest that you pulled in, Mr. Booker himself, John Macaroon, getting Bill Dugan to come on today.
That's right, Vito. That's what I do. Listen, you have to believe it and executed. And that's what I tell everybody on the podcast. If you want anybody, I'll find him, I'll message him, and that's the best I can do, and I'll try my best for you. And I knew that he was someone that was made the news and somebody that I wanted to maybe have talk to you, and we made it happen. So this is what we do here on the network. We work together, and we have a good time talking baseball. So far, 3-2. We had a lot of fun this podcast, pointing out some mistakes from the newspaper.
We did. How about 3-4 from the news? That's not the record, dudes. Come on, get your facts right.
Ooh, that's from Vito, from the Free Press.
From the Free Press, my competitor at the news. They're making the mistake, not the Free Press. You better get that right. And we did here today on Tigers
and I checked. The Free Press had it right, 3-2.
Good. Good to hear.
So we did that. We talked about the positives and negatives from week 1. Had a lot of great guests. Feel like I'm in the know, kind of in the same boat like everybody else. Kind of reserved, waiting and seeing what's going on. But we all have the same concerns, and I'm into it. And because of this podcast, I'm watching the Tigers more intently, having a good old time, and I thank you for that. I'm looking forward to breaking it all down. Man, McMann, get in that chamber, do what you got to do, get that ankle right, and please let that MRI be okay.
And let Castellanos be really good going forward. He went 4 for 4 already. That was a major positive that we really didn't touch on. Casty, baby, getting it done there at the plate. Can he do that consistently? If he does, he might hit 20 bombs. I think at least 15 like we've talked about in the past. I know you like him a little bit more than I do. But we had a lot of fun talking about him, V-Mart, JV struggles, Pelfrey struggles, Anibal Sanchez's good start, V-Mart's good start to the year, and those 2 pinch hit appearances to start the season and make it history.
And big ups to you, Facebook Live superstar, getting a lot of views.
We have so far.
A lot of promotion for the Tigers Talk podcast on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. So all is good, buddy. Let's get out of here.
All is good. Very much so. Much thanks once again to Aaron McMann, Bill Dugan of Roseville. And hey, lots of fun next week in store for episode number 37 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Talk to you then.